automatically sat out pretty much every third game of any series, or third or fourth day in a row. He never played. Rarely did he ever play 3 days in a row, and you can't keep a bat like that out of your lineup.
No,
right?
You can't,
because the Twins didn't have a lot of talent through those years. He was their best hitter.
Okay, so let me stop you here. Let me stop you here.
Right,
okay, so let me read the accolades. Okay, because I was honestly, I feel very guilty for what I was, because me and my dad, I mean, we just ripped them these last few years. Oh, Twins win 7-0. Twins win 7-0, and he'll read me Joe Mauer 0 for 2 with 2 walks, something like that.
Yes.
And I was on him, but when I watched this press conference, you talk about a guy that you took for granted. I believe 6-time All-Star, AL MVP in 2009. 3-time Gold Glove Award, and don't take away from that. Don't say, Gold Glove Award. No, he was a tremendous catcher. People would not run on him. They wouldn't run on him.
Absolutely.
5-time Silver Slugger Award, 3-time AL batting champion, never been done by a catcher before. He set the MLB record for the highest single-season batting average by a catcher, 365. 365. MLB record for highest single-season on-base percentage by a catcher at 444. He's the first AL catcher to ever win a batting title. He's got the most batting titles by a catcher. He's got the highest career batting average as a catcher at 323. I can't sit here and rip Joe Mauer, and you said it. The Twins are the most cheap franchise in sports. They didn't give him an opportunity to win. And when I look back and I say, okay, you know what? Did he do anything in the playoffs? No. But if you remember this game against the Yankees, he hit a double that should have been a double, and they called foul. And after that, they implemented the whole replay system, so that took away from him. But you know what?
I know. I remember it, yes. Okay.
I can't sit here and, I know you're not a big fan of Joe Mauer, but you can't be upset of what he gave to the franchise. And I believe that he was overpaid, towards the end of his career, obviously. But it's like the Parisian Suter thing. Like, if you went back to 2012, would you sign him again? Heck yeah, you would, because that was the situation. What, are you going to let Joe Mauer walk after he wins an MVP and he's from Minnesota and wants to stay? There's no way they can do that. They got handcuffed. I don't know what to say. I mean, you didn't expect him to flake out towards the end of his career, but for me to sit here and rip him and stuff like that, I can't do it. I got to defend my guy. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Well, first of all, I blame the Twins. I absolutely. If they're sitting down and they're thinking, okay, the top guns are like, okay, let's offer him 23 over 8 years. Hopefully he takes it. Let's. I hope Polad is there thinking, okay, if we're going to spend $23 million on one guy, and we're only going to spend this much, we're not going to be competitive. And that's on the organization. And I know they had to keep him at the time, and I wanted him kept too. But that's on the Twins and the Bobos above Joe. I mean, if you're going to spend $23 million on another guy, you better have a plan in place.
I agree.
You better have people in the minors. But let's get back to Joe real quick. Here's my final thoughts on him, then I'm done. Okay, no more. I won't bring him up the rest of the time I'm on your show. Okay? But I want you to do this when we get off the phone here. If you Google September 23rd, 2013 interview Joe Mauer, this is after he came back from the concussion. This was a year after the concussion. And he says, I am a catcher, and I plan on coming back and being a catcher. That is my priority. He was too much of a baby with that, in my opinion. I think that once they sat him down and said, Joe, we can't have you catching anymore, I think he I think that bothered him a lot, and he was never the same player.
You think that?
I don't blame the concussion. I do. I honestly do, because I'm older. I'm 50 years old. I know what happens in the mind when something goes wrong at work. You don't get a promotion. You don't get to do what you want to do. You get a little salty.
That's fair.
And one other thing too I want to say about him.
But wouldn't it help him bat though if he moved from catcher to first?
Well, I just think he's so proud of his catching abilities.
Oh, okay. He took pride in that.
Yes, I just don't think he felt like. Did you read his goodbye statement that he wrote? That long letter he wrote to the fans. It was on their Twitter page. I don't know if it made the newspaper or not.
I didn't see it.
He comments in there that he makes a little read between the lines. It bothered him that he no longer could catch starting in 2013. If you read that real carefully, he's like, well, my job has kind of changed in 2013, and It has nothing to do with the concussion. If he was that concerned about his concussion in 2013, why didn't he just retire?
Well, because he had a bunch of money on his contract. Right. They're not going to flake.
And once again, he turns into one of these, I'm a concussion this, concussion that. Well, Joel, you had 5 years to get out. But you didn't want to leave that other $100 million on the table.
I mean, that's fair, but like I said, I don't know what you want to do. I don't know what you expect him to. If you're Joe Mauer and you're 20-something, late 20s, I mean, are you gonna do a Don Mattingly and you're gonna retire after 6 great years? I mean, that would be same with. What about Robert Smith? I mean, Robert Smith was another guy who
yeah, that's a subject for another day. Anytime you want to talk about it.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Well, the thing is, though, deep down, though, the real thing that bothered me was the fact that he turned into a patient walking hitter.
And me too. I'll agree with you.
I don't know why. Was it the concussion or was it his attitude? I don't know. He seemed like he turned into a totally different guy in 2013, and that's what bothered me the most. I didn't see that swing the bat. Come on.
And I agree. And this is where I'll agree with you, Dave. I mean, I do believe that this is a spot
on Twitter.
If there is first and second, or second and third, one out, Joe Mauer would rather take a walk than hit a single, and
or
that
6,
was
4, 3.
And that was and that was him. So I'll leave you with this stat.
Yeah.
If Mauer continued playing and made an out in every one of his next 1,500 at bats, he'd still finish with a higher on base percentage than Hall of Fame catchers Johnny Bench, Gary Carter, and Carlton Fisk. So I'll leave you with
that comes from someone that's still in college and isn't out in the work world because there's no way you have time to figure that out.
I'll leave you with that.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Dave, you're the man. We'll talk to you next week, man.
Looking forward to it.
Marcus Fuller of the Star Tribune joins me now. He is a Gopher basketball writer, big fan, and I appreciate him for coming on. Marcus, how are you? Thanks again for giving me the time.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I'm pretty good.
All right, let's do this thing. Opening night, we saw that. We saw the game against Utah, their second game. They're 2-0 now. So let's get into the point guard position. So with the departure of Nate Mason, you see Rick Pitino, he's trying to figure out who he can play at the one. I know he's trying Amir Coffey, but to me, Coffey is kind of more suitable at that wing position where he can get rhythm threes, kind of get to the basket in a few dribbles. What are your thoughts on Coffey at the one? And if you don't like him at the one, who do you think should be playing it?
I think if Pitino was listening to us right now, he'd say we're making too much out of the point guard spot. I think in today's game of basketball, especially at the NBA level, it's positionless. And, college, you talk more about positions. But I think in this case, you really don't see a true point guard in this team. I mean, if you want to put a guy there, obviously Isaiah Washington, because of his size at 6'1". Amir, obviously, you don't see too many 6'8" point guards. But, right now he's the best passer on the team. Obviously, the ball moves when he's at the one position. And really, I think right now, Dupree McBrayer and Amir Coffey are both handling the ball quite a bit. They're leading the team in assists, and they're really both handling that primary ball handling position with the starting group. And you're seeing a lot of those kickback shots, corner shots coming from Gabe Kalster from three, and I think that's working for them right now. I think defensively, it's really tough to have Isaiah Washington at the top spot in the defense, and until he improves, I really think the lineup they have right now with Amir at the one, if you want to call it the one, I think that's the best lineup they have.
Now, I'm going back a couple of years ago, actually many years ago, big Gopher guy. Blake Hoffar was one of my favorite players. They moved him to point guard his senior year, and his offensive productivity kind of dipped. Do you think that's going to happen with Amir Coffey at all, or you don't see that happening?
Different players, much different players. I think Blake was always more of a spot-up shooter. Then he developed his passing skills. He developed his defense, and he actually became more than a one-dimensional player. And I think Amir Coffey has always been a guy that's better with the ball in his hands. And you'll see that this season, and I think you'll see that throughout his career, the rest of his career at Minnesota. When you put the ball in his hands is when the team's better. So I think they're totally different players, but I can see the comparison because at a new position, you never know how a guy's going to handle it. And in Blake's case, it was a tough move for him.
I agree. Okay, good point. You know what you're getting from Jordan Murphy, Dupree McBrayer, Amir Coffey, like you said. But what about these freshmen this year? I mean, Gabe Kosher, you said he's off to a hot start. He can really shoot the rock. You got Daniel Achuru. How important is it for these freshmen to come in and step up, immediately?
I didn't think that all three of them would have major contributions this year. We knew that Daniel Achuru was going to be an immediate star in the paint. I thought Eric Curry would, if he was healthy, would start at center, but you knew Daniel was going to get a lot of minutes. Gabe Kalsher took everybody by surprise when he started in the Creighton scrimmage and led the team in scoring. Behind the scenes, he was moving up in that rotation with his work ethic, with his attitude, obviously his defensive ability, and his body he's ready for the next level. And right now they just don't have a player like him on the floor. He's the best shooter on the floor most cases. And he's also probably one of the highest IQ players on the floor as well. And for a freshman, that's you really don't see that too often. And Jarvis Omersa is the best athlete that Pitino's ever recruited.
Oh, yes.
And we know that he's a highlight reel. I think that he's going to have to learn how to help the team in different ways, especially defensively and rebounding. Versus Utah against a much taller and bigger team, he was pretty much non-existent on the boards. And I think he really needs to help this team rebounding, especially if Jordan Murphy's in foul trouble and Daniel Turu's in foul trouble. They really need someone off the bench to help them rebound and help them score inside. And once Jarvis does that, I think all three freshmen will contribute. But right now, really, it's just the two starters in Daniel and Gabe.
And you saw Murphy get into a little foul trouble actually against Utah beginning in the first half. How important is it for Rick Pitino to get these in-state recruits? Gabe Kosher, Daniel. How important is that to have these guys stay in state?
Right. I think that when they can help you, you need to get the best players. Obviously you're not going to recruit over North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky. There'll be a special case one day, hopefully soon, but you never know. Where one of those kids will decide to stay home. In my opinion, it just has to be a special circumstance. Right now, that special circumstance possibly is Matthew Hurt, where his brother is on the team. But really, it takes that kind of situation for you to recruit over at Duke, Kentucky, and North Carolina. Obviously these kids are looking at a national championship, and you just can't compete with them right now.
Right.
So
Fair
there's
enough.
that second tier player. I hate to call them second tier, but that's the best thing I can say right now about them. But those players, they can play at Wisconsin. They can play, at a high major school, and you need to get those players because those players can develop into starters. They can develop into all Big Ten players. You see that happen with Brad Davison at Wisconsin. You see that happen with McKinley Wright at Colorado. Those are the players that you need to keep in state and that can really help you win at a high level. And I think they did that last year, but this year, right now, we don't see any of those kids signing with the Gophers.
Fair enough. Let me talk about a player that, listen, I played college basketball at Kane Division III. I played in New Jersey, New York. Isaiah Washington, I've seen him at tournaments and stuff. He's obviously a tremendous talent, but, his freshman year, his sophomore year, what are your thoughts on him? He struggled shooting the ball. It kind of just seems like he's struggling at making decisions. What are your thoughts on Isaiah Washington as we move along here? Because, even against Utah, a couple shots he missed. You could see the frustration on his face and the body language dropping.
I think you made a good point there with the body language. I think that's always been an issue with him. I don't want to be negative with him as far as, his attitude, because I think, when he's with his teammates, I think they love to be around him. I think he's one of the funniest. I've heard he's one of the funniest players on the team. And, so with his teammates, I think he has a great attitude. But obviously when he's not playing well, I think that he does struggle with that, the body language, and that affects the rest of his game.
Yep.
I think he's really, really, has his confidence offensively. And so when he's not playing well offensively, not shooting the ball well, I think that's when he struggles with his confidence. And I think he's just going to have to find other ways to help this team and to boost his confidence. And I think you saw him do that in the opener versus Omaha with his passing skills.
Yep.
I think if he gets to the basket, he's really hard to stop off the dribble. So if he focuses on getting to the basket, I really do think that he can help this team. Defensively, he needs to improve as well. And I think if he plays better defensively and he's able to penetrate and get the ball to his teammates, I think he can be a really, really effective player this year.
100% agree. I mean, you also want to see his shot improve as well, but that'll come with time. I think that's really a confidence thing. I mean, he had a couple open looks that, he needs to make